I would say before you kind of challenged me with that statement. So I
Well,
remember it was,
describe it. Describe it. Maybe
yeah,
just
yeah.
if
So
you
it was
describe
on,
that moment.
sure, it was on LinkedIn. And I had met you at the event, and it was a good event, and I was happy with the speakers. And like you said, they have all these great things that they're working on. And then afterwards, I
September
post,
2024, just a reminder,
yep, September
right? So 2020,
2024.
exactly 1 year ago, right? Yeah.
Right. And I think I had posted on LinkedIn a recap of the event, and you had commented, the same thing you always say, with all due respect, show, show me the evidence. And I don't know why, but I mean, I'm an honest person and I'm very optimistic. You know how I am now. You know me well enough. So I'm like, oh, this is all great, and all these people are great, and we'll just share their message, and it's all great. Like why would anyone walk away skeptical or doubting or asking for, like, it just never occurred to me to have that proof. And
Mhm.
then when you mentioned that, I'm like, you know what, you're right. And you think about it's greenwashing. It could be greenwashing. Everybody's saying positive things. Everyone's talking about how they're being sustainable or this or that. And then you dig deeper and you can't find the evidence, or you find out, okay, maybe they're doing one recycled material and all of a sudden they're a sustainable brand. Well, to prove it, like you need more than that. And so you really opened my eyes to that and changed the way I look at things, I guess, because now whenever I'm doing an event or I'm writing even an article, I want that proof. I want that data showing, and so now I have a different approach for, if I'm doing a blog story about a brand that I'm calling ethical, I dig deeper and I look for, on their website, their proof, their impact, and they have numbers, and a lot of them have, I don't know, I guess like a breakdown of how they're doing things and the impact they're making. So I make sure now that I include that. So I'm not just saying, oh, I love this brand because they're organic this, I
They
include,
claim to be.
yeah, yep. So you're bringing up the fact that people are skeptical and people want proof, and they really want to see the impact that that brand or that story or that person is making. And then that gives them so much more, well, credibility, but it gives the consumer so much more belief in that brand or that person. So then they maybe, they become a follower or a fan because they believe in their mission, or they, maybe they have a mission about kids, or maybe it's a mission about the ocean. They can kind of pick, ones that really resonate with them and follow them and know that it's real. It's, proving all of those
Yeah.
claims. So now I look at things completely differently and being skeptical myself,
Yeah.
so that's kind of a filter I've added is, okay, I need to be skeptical and I want proof that this brand is truly, and I have found, so I have an affiliate, a partnership with some ethical brands. And, I'd promote them through a blog post or something saying, hey, this is a brand I found and they do this. And a couple of them I've dug deeper. And then start looking at their fabrics. They are not sustainable, or maybe they do work with artisans, but the fabric that they're using is, harmful, but they're claiming they're doing all these
Right.
great. So for my own personal, like vetting a brand,
But
I'm,
reputation.
yeah,
And that's
yep,
the other thing. See,
it,
I'm so pleased to hear you say this because at the heart of all this is trust and
yeah,
trust building. So what you're talking about actually is on two levels. You as a professional, you as a thought leader, an emerging thought leader on the front lines of conscious fashion. You yourself want to be trusted and
yeah,
believed that whenever you post or write an article, you want your audience to, hey, if Britta Cabanos says it, it must be true. She has done her detective work, unearthed evidence, and she wouldn't steer us wrong, kind of thing.
right,
So it's
right,
you and your personal professional trust building. And now you're also even indirectly pushing the brands to do more to earn trust because you're investigating it and you're
Yeah.
recognizing that some are not as trustworthy or doing enough to prove that they are trustworthy and supporting their
Yeah,
claims.
exactly. So I'm much more careful now and I do much more in-depth research. And I've seen several ethical, eco-friendly website and blog writers promoting brands. And then a month or two later, they'll post something, oh, sorry, we discovered blah 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 after learning more about this brand, so they're retracting what they said,
Right,
which is great on their part. They're
right.
admitting, they're like, okay,
That's
wait,
right.
whoa, we were kind of tricked into this. So it is tricky because there are a lot of claims that people are making that
Yeah.
you maybe can't prove, but at least to be more skeptical, and have that filter going into, your what you're sharing is definitely a high priority for me now. And I want for people like you that are, what do you call them? There's the when you're talking about you're writing your story, you have like the sheep, and then you have the
The sheep, yeah, the sheep and the critical thinkers.
yeah, yep.
Yes, that's
So
right.
I think
That's
before I
right.
was a sheep, now I'm a critical thinker, and I want my audience to know that um, I am they're a critical thinker. They should be a critical thinker. They shouldn't just follow and um, do their I need to do the due diligence, as do they, to really know that what you're sharing or spending your money on is
Well,
truly, what they say they're
well,
doing.
see, now you're getting to something which is the bottom line, which is why does all this matter? Because you also said do your due diligence, do your research, do your homework, right? And anyone listening to this could be like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work, okay,
Yep.
to
Yeah.
research these things. But ultimately, I would argue, I mean, it would be nice for me to back it up with evidence. I'm sure I could find the evidence that it's worth it to make that effort to identify and unearth that evidence, then illuminate, bring it to light, because it could be on the ground level, it could be the difference between persuading an ordinary customer that I trust this brand, so I'm going to buy products from this brand. But bigger picture could be investors,
Mhm.
donors, media coverage, okay, which is why exactly should I trust you or believe you? I don't find your claims to be so credible. Oof, we have to work hard
Mhm.
to, like a lawyerly argument before a judge and jury, to bring forth in a very transparent, verifiable way. Here's the evidence, because it may enable you to land some multi-million dollar investment or
Yeah.
donations or cherished media coverage from some big name, industry publication, that we are now recognizing you as being on the front lines and truly producing what you claim to be producing, conscious
Mhm.
fashion, let's say, right?
Yep. Well, another thing you taught me after we went through the course and my working with you more and learning from you more is those links. Find the data, find things
Hyperlink.
online, hyperlinks, and
Yeah.
put that. So then you helped me craft my origin story, which became a lot more in depth on my personal emotional experiences in the industry. And that led me to researching mental health in the fashion industry. And
Mm.
I found some amazing articles, even from, Vogue,
Mm.
and put those hyperlinks
Ah,
in my story. So for
right.
somebody reading and
Wow.
doing research, it could be very simple.
Yeah.
Read the article,
Yeah.
click on a couple of the links, you
Yeah.
get the proof.
Yeah.
They've got surveys, they've got data,
Yeah.
so it just takes a couple of links. And maybe as a consumer or a reader, you don't have to deep dive and read all the links. Maybe it's just one or two, and it just proves what I'm talking about is a real thing.
Wow. Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be super complicated, tons of research. It could be that one link that's going to prove oh, okay, they did these surveys over a year. They
Yeah.
talked to 600 people and here's the results.
Yeah.
And right away you're like, okay, I believe it. It's proven fact. Yep.
You know what? That stuff, I mean, I'm so happy to hear that because it's invaluable and it reminds me of how and why I learned that as a journalist, that as a reporter out in the field, especially as a foreign correspondent, one journalistic principle is to say whatever you want. You're free to say whatever you want as long as you back it up with facts and
Mhm.
evidence. Why? Well, do you want to be believed? Do you want to be trusted? Okay.
Yeah.
And
Is it
so
fake news?
that's right. In this day and age, if you care at all about your reputation, and so what you're also talking about is, hey, if anyone listening to this wants to develop and elevate themselves, develop their thought leadership, I want to be listened to. Okay. So then it's not just me, me, me. Here's my little story. Okay.
Right.
It's also placing yourself within proper context, which is, and I'm not, for example, with what you're describing. I wasn't alone. I'm not the only one to have experienced mental ill health because of what I was enduring in the fashion industry. Here's some research from a credible organization, hyperlink. And then there's
Yeah.
this study and this poll, this survey, boom, boom, boom. And now suddenly you're making a lawyerly argument in front of a judge and jury, but also a virtual judge and jury, but also your audience is truly learning something from you and building up that trust for the next time. Like,
Hmm.
thank you for educating me about this issue. I will return to your platform in the future for more
Yeah.
knowledgeable information about conscious fashion and all that. So that's also how you build your brand and attract people back to you is whatever I'm going to say, I'm going to back it up with some concrete, credible, believable
Yeah.
evidence, which I can hyperlink right there.
Yep. And I don't think I did that before. I might have hyperlinked to like another list or, another advice column, but to link it to the data
Yeah.
is not
Yeah.
something I had really done consistently or thought about doing before to prove, the fact of my claim.
And
So,
and one more thing. Thank you for all this, Britta, because it's important for us to all of us professionals to follow up and to try to identify what impact, if any, have we had on people we've tried to assist,
mhm,
and just to also to talk a bit more about that origin story, which I coached you through the process of
mhm,
how to write it, and just whatever lesson that you learned from that, because the bigger picture is part of my overarching strategic storytelling principle is that I've discovered two main ways to impact memorably, impactfully, to engage and impact a target audience. On the one of a smart but skeptical target audience. On the one hand is the need for evidence, concrete, credible, believable evidence can touch the mind of a skeptic. Okay.
mhm.
They're smart, skeptical, but still open minded to, okay, go ahead, persuade me. Okay.
Right.
So that credible evidence can touch the mind of a skeptic. But then the humanizing content, especially to spotlight the shared humanity, to bring us closer together, can touch the heart of a skeptic.
Mhm.
So then with your origin story, the idea was, hey, let's humanize yourself, but also to support it with some of that credible evidence. Why? To touch for your target audience, whoever wants to learn about your organization and to learn about the founder and the founder's vision and where your heart and mind are. You sharing that your story would ideally touch the heart and mind of that
Yeah.
smart but skeptical audience. So I'm curious what you learned from that experience too.
Yeah. Um, I think it opened up my business to be more relatable to anyone who's had that similar experience. So maybe that's my people, not that you had to have gone through a major mental, health challenge. But it's just the reality of the industry and sharing that and expressing that was something I hadn't thought about before because I just thought it's just normal. It's the way the industry is and everyone deals with it. But for once I got the origin story, published, I feel like it's giving more people I'm a relatable person that they
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
connect with. And maybe that's my community is people that want to connect with someone that feels that. There, like you mentioned, there's so many communities. You got
No.
to find where you fit,
Yeah.
So maybe my people are people that care about mindfulness, and that's why I so much talk about conscious design. Is everything should be really thought through and not just, I was so used to mass market hundreds of styles a year, just throwing stuff out there and, money, money, money and production. And, let's just pause and think about what are your values and how do you want to live while you're pursuing your career and if
Right.
design is your passion, you don't have to, you know, be giving up all of what you believe in
Yeah.
to do that. So I feel like my community are people that relate to that. And by sharing my story and getting it out there, more people can be like, oh, okay, I've experienced that too. And that would be a great community to connect with because they care about those things.
I mean, all this is related to strategic storytelling, okay? Because ultimately the challenges that we all face is how to engage and impact any target audience. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, just as a reminder, so this is what's interesting about what you're describing is, look, I could have just introduced my organization. Here's who we are, here's what we do, okay, in a relatively dry, sort of unemotional way. Okay, right?
Hmm.
Just the facts, ma'am. Okay. Kind of
Yeah.
approach, right?
Yeah.
And that would be the more traditional way. And then understandably, many people could be more private. I don't want to be that vulnerable, that exposed, sharing my story, right? But if you think from a strategic storytelling perspective, how exactly to touch the heart and mind of a target audience, how exactly to resonate or reverberates, and make yourself more memorable, then
Hmm.
exposing a little bit, all right, sharing a little
Yeah.
bit of that vulnerability can be a very effective way as you learn, and you're learning, can be a way to make us care more about you. It's one,
Hmm.
even if we haven't shared some of what you're talking about, like you said, a mental health crisis, right? But that even the idea of, you know what, I like you. I want to support you. I'm rooting for you. And so again, even if they haven't gone through it, they are then pulling for you somehow. Maybe they're spreading the word, hey, you should check out this organization. The founder is really quite an inspirational character. Okay, like you said with Jude Kingston and all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is, right? It's also because of that personal origin story, which then becomes part of your brand story. And one last thing is that
Mhm.
then in your origin story, as you also indicated, it's a way to convey your values, what you
Mhm.
care about, what truly inspires you, motivates you, impassions you. You can also share your own competence in terms of. So then, after I was inspired by this idea and decided I want to do X, Y, Z, I did this because then I did that because. So then you're even showing the competence of your decision making, how you built
Mhm.
up your operation, right? And then how you remain committed. That's another value, your commitment and your resilience. Of course, there have been bumps along the way, but we
Yeah.
always bounce back. And, so you're
I
sharing
love
so many values within that origin story that will then, keep touching the hearts of your audience, heart and mind.